We have some news that we want to share with everyone. I wouldn't call it breaking news, but this is, I don't even know if it's surprising, right? I just think with the names and how good he looked at the college level, people were really excited about this guy, and we just got knocked a little bit back to reality from Matt George. The Sacramento Kings have assigned Maxime Raynaud to Stockton, and for a second rounder to be assigned to Stockton, that's not that big of a deal. That's very, very common. It's more common that happens than that doesn't. And I'm part of it too. When I was out there at Summer League, I was talking to a Western Conference scout, and he said he thought Maxime should have went in the first round. And look, there's some first rounders that end up in the G League to start. But yeah, talking to Frankie Cardicelli during the roundtable, Maxime got out there, that first game, and it just didn't look great. It didn't look great. He was trying to figure everything out, and there have been a lot of good stories come from the G League. We've highlighted a couple of them as well. Isaac Jones was that story. Keon Ellis was that story. I know those guys were undrafted, but he's a second rounder. And I think this is good for everyone, myself included, just from the expectations point of view, to see where Maxime is going to be. He's got to get down there. He's got to get some reps and feel better, get his confidence back right, and then we'll see him when we see him, right? Obviously, he goes 7'1". He's 22 years old, out of Paris, France, went to Stanford. We're all very excited about it. We're all very excited about him, but clearly he has some work to do just from the speed of the game, how things have changed for him, who he's going to be in this league. Is he going to be a forward? Is he going to be a center? He's going to go to the G League and find himself. He's going to go to the G League, find himself, figure out who he is as a player, figure out what works, what doesn't, and we will see him hopefully sooner than later. But this is not a negative thing.
No, and I'm looking up the G League schedule here. So I guess the G League is doing a new thing this year where they play 2-game series, which I assume is for travel reasons, but Stockton Kings' first 2 games are Saturday and Sunday. So I would imagine Maxime's going to play in both of those games, which technically means he would only be unavailable for the Friday Thunder game and the Sunday Timberwolves game.
Yeah.
And outside of those two, he'd be right back on the roster. They don't have to worry about a games limit like with two-way players. So they just decided that they would rather, and now that they have Precious Achiuwa, they would rather Maxime Raynaud play a couple games against the San Diego Clippers than they would to have him sit on the bench against the Thunder or sit on the bench against the Timberwolves, which is a thing they did all last year with Devin Carter.
Yeah, and it also goes to the creation of this roster and the setup of this roster. Clearly what they need is defense, and that's what they feel they want to focus on. I don't know that anybody is surprised at this, because when Dylan Cardwell was starting games, even though Kyle didn't believe it, but when Dylan Cardwell was starting games, when Dylan Cardwell was getting called before Maxime Raynaud, I don't believe that Dylan Cardwell is a better player than Maxime Raynaud, but Dylan Cardwell fits a need, okay? And you have Precious Achiuwa, who fits a need. Right now, they don't need what Maxime Raynaud is supposed to give. And then on top of that, they don't necessarily know that Maxime Raynaud can actually give what he's supposed to give right now, because this is the NBA. And when we did see him, it did not look like what it looked like in the Summer League, because the Summer League is not the NBA. The Summer League is, I guess, the middle ground between the NBA and college, with a couple other guys floating around. So he's going to go down there. He's going to figure out who he is as a player, and they might not need him all season long. They might need him in February if they blow this thing up and they decide, hey, we're going to focus on the youth. But the other thing to remember is that this team, and I don't want to say cosplaying because that sounds disrespectful, but I'm going to say it anyway. This team is cosplaying as a team that is ready to compete, right? they're not actually going to compete for a championship because, and the reason I say cosplaying is because if you're competing for an 8 seed, you're not actually competing. You're, again, trying to put there's competing and there's putting together a competitive roster. And those two things are different. The Kings are not competing. The Kings have put together a competitive roster, right? You can't roll the ball out and beat the Kings. They got guys that can not even sneak up on you. They got guys that can put the biscuit in the basket. But they are not actually competing. They want us to believe they're competing, but they're not. So with that being said, on a team that believes they are competing, somebody like Maxime Raynaud, and on a team that thinks they're competing that's missing defense, somebody like Maxime Raynaud, there's nowhere for him to go. There's no path for him to get the reps that he needs. So this is less, even though he hasn't looked great, this is less about Maxime Raynaud and more. It is about Maxime Raynaud because he didn't look great, but it is more about the Kings continuing to attempt to compete. And if Maxime Raynaud was on, I don't know, the Hornets or a team that just straight, the Nets, and shout out Jordy, one of these teams that truly is not, the Jazz, one of these teams, I know the Jazz got some big boys, but one of these teams that really is not out here trying to compete, I think he could get time on the Bulls behind Vucevic. I think there are some, I know they got
Jalen Smith.
Well, I know, yeah, they do got Jalen Smith, but there are some teams that he could definitely get some time on. Number one, the Kings are still trying to compete. And number two, what they need in order to compete is not Maxime Raynaud's bread and butter.
I feel like I disagree with you, though, because if the Kings felt Maxime Raynaud could contribute right now, they probably wouldn't have signed Precious Achiuwa.
But we're not disagreeing, though. Maxime Raynaud is not a defensive anchor.
I get that, but this is where I'm struggling with him being able to fit a role in the NBA, is he's going to have to be kind of the tall man. He's Walmart
Markkanen.
Or Chet or someone like that.
Yeah, he's Walmart Markkanen until he's better than Markkanen or as good as Markkanen. That is the path that I see for him. And meanwhile, the Kings are looking for, because again, going back to it, Kyle, the difference between Chet and Markkanen is that Chet is a shot blocker and Chet competes defensively. Markkanen does not. So when we talk about who Domantas Sabonis needs, we've talked about how good the Kings would be offensively if they added Markkanen, but they'd be a complete disaster defensively.
Yeah, but Markkanen's also a 3. So is Maxime going to play the 3?
No, but I don't want to get too caught up. I think he could play 4 too. Don't get me wrong. He's the 3 because that team has 12, 7, 5 dudes.
Sure, but they've done that by design, right? They've built around Markkanen and decided in drafting Filipowski and drafting Ace Bailey and keeping Walker Kessler and bringing in Nurkic, like they've decided that is the best path forward in building, is that is what Markkanen's role is going to be. So that's kind of where I'm struggling with it with Max. And again, it's not an indictment of the player. He could get better, but they just were looking for any kind of shot blocking and rebounding. Mm-hmm. And they went and got Precious Achiuwa, which is not Maxime's style of play.
No.
But I mean, they would have played Maxime if they could have gotten something on the defensive end of the floor.
No, but that's not why they got him. They took 2 swings. This is what we always knew, right? And Nick Clifford, by the way, that alley-oop he had, I know a lot of you were saying, Allen, Nick Clifford could be a star, and I said, hey, let's just make sure he's an NBA player. I am starting to agree with you Texers and Sack Chatters. Nick Clifford, he's got something. I want to see him shoot the 3-ball better, but he's got something there. But the reason I bring that up is because Nick Clifford was I got to go baseball here. Nick Clifford was your 2-1 count, right? Maybe even 1-2 count, 2-2 count. Let's just get a base knock and maybe you get a double out of it, right? That was Nick Clifford. He was the oldest first rounder taken. It was essentially a sure thing that he would be ready, not a high ceiling, not a ton of launch angle going to baseball. Let's just get a single and get on base and see what we can do. Maxime Raynaud was the 3-0 count. I know Vladdy missed it, but Maxime Raynaud was the 3-0 count. Let's see if we can hit something out the ballpark. You're going to have to work on it, and you might miss, but let's see what we can do. because of that, Nick Clifford is ready to help the team now, and Maxime Raynaud is not ready to help the team now. But I think, like you just said with the Jazz, that was by design.
Where I struggle with it, though, is with the second-round picks, you only got 2 years to figure it out, because then you got to discuss third-year team options and what kind of contracts you're going to sign and things like that. You got kind of 2 years to figure out if that player is going to be a contributor.
You can disagree with it. I'm just saying that felt like what their approach was. And again, this is a team that we don't know what it's going to be in February. Maxime might be playing in February as a starter.
Yeah.
He might be the backup. We don't know. So that was just, again, and they don't have nobody 7 foot. So let's just go get a 7-footer. The prototype of player that Maxime is, they do not have.
Yeah, I guess maybe it's just I'm discouraged that in all this need for anything, they're essentially treating him like Dario Saric. I guess that's why I'm a little discouraged.
I don't understand your discouragement, because what they need, this all comes back to Sabonis, number one. And number two, what they need is not what Maxime Raynaud does right now.
No, I agree, but neither is Westbrook.
Don't be, well, turns out it is, because I'm going to be nice.
Neither is Neek at the 4.
Turns out it is. Well, they're not winning games. They're also not winning games. Kyle, don't feel discouraged unless he gets to the G League and he's not, like we always say, you need to look like you don't belong. If he gets to the G League and it's a bit pedestrian, let's be worried, because he's 22 years old. But going to the G, let's see what he does. Because remember, there are a lot of guys out there. I remember with Colby Jones dropping 40, Mason Jones. Let's see what he does in the G League before you get discouraged. When we return, the 1 o'clock hour is upon us. Let's take a trip around the league. And I want to have a really interesting conversation. You don't have to be a parent per se, but this is a conversation that I've had with a lot of people, and there is a clip going around of Zach LaVine, and it's about hard work. So it's an argument about hard work versus your talent that you're born with. And it was very fascinating how people were going back and forth about Zach LaVine. So we're going to take a trip around the league, and then we're going to argue about, should you tell your kids, hey, your genes stink, do not waste your time. Allen Stiles, Sactown Sports.
Visit